He lost everything in one night: his job, his dignity, and almost his life. But what he did next made 2025 the year the world remembered his name. It started with silence. Not the peaceful kind, not the kind that calms a room. It was the heavy, choked silence that fills a space after everything has fallen apart. Ethan Reed lay still on his worn-out mattress, staring at the cracked ceiling of his one-bedroom apartment. The once white walls were stained with shadows of his past. His phone lay dead next to him. Not that it mattered. No one had called in days, he hadn't shaved in weeks, his hair was tangled. The fridge was nearly empty except for an old carton of milk and half a lemon. Even the air inside felt stale, like his life had stopped breathing. 3 months ago, Ethan was somebody. He walked the hallways of a towering corporate building, head held high, emails flowing in, responsibilities on his shoulders like medals. He was a senior campaign strategist at Vellum Group, one of the top firms in Chicago. He had a team that looked up to him, a paycheck that made him comfortable, and a fiancée named Sarah who used to smile when he walked in the room. Then came the mistake. It was one email, one wrong attachment sent to the wrong client, a confidential blueprint, sensitive branding material, exposed. It wasn't betrayal, it was human error. Ethan admitted it within minutes, tried to undo the damage, apologized formally, but corporate didn't forgive. They needed someone to blame. He was escorted out by security that afternoon. No last meetings, no farewell drinks, no handshakes. The people he called friends, silent. Not one message, not one question. He tried to hold it together in the beginning. "It's just a bump," he told himself. "Something better will come along." It didn't. Days turned into weeks, applications turned into silence, interviews turned into ghosting, and Sarah turned into someone else. She grew distant, cold, quiet. One evening, while Ethan reheated old pasta in the microwave, she walked in with a packed suitcase. "I can't do this anymore," she said. He didn't ask her to stay. He couldn't even look her in the eye. She left the way the rain does, without thunder, without drama, just falling until it stops. That night, he slept on the floor. Not because the bed was broken, but because it felt closer to how he felt inside. January 1st, 2025, he woke up with nothing but time. The calendar said new year, new beginnings, resolutions, fresh starts. For Ethan, it was just another day without meaning. He sat in front of his dead laptop. He had lost internet a week ago, bills unpaid. He picked up a pen from his drawer and held it like it was foreign. He thought about writing. But what do you write when everything feels like failure? By January 3rd, the eviction notice arrived. A crisp, cold paper taped to his door. 7 days to leave, no second warning. He laughed when he saw it. A hollow, cracked laugh, the kind of laugh you hear in a hospital waiting room after bad news. He stayed inside all day, lights off. He didn't eat, he didn't speak, he didn't even cry. That night, the storm outside matched the one inside him. Rain slammed against the window, lightning cracked the sky, and thunder rolled like something was breaking in the heavens. And maybe something was. At 3:42 a.m., he couldn't take the silence anymore. He put on a jacket, the same one he wore to his last office meeting, and walked out. No umbrella, no destination, just motion. The city felt foreign. The streets were slick with rain. Headlights reflected off puddles like ghosts. He walked past closed shops, boarded-up cafes, neon signs flickering over empty sidewalks. Eventually, his legs brought him to a park he hadn't visited since childhood. He sat on a rusted bench under a dying tree. That's when he saw the man. Old, weathered, wearing a long brown coat too big for his frail frame. He was feeding breadcrumbs to pigeons who didn't mind the rain. Ethan sat quietly watching. "You look like someone who forgot what it feels like to breathe," the old man said. Eyes never leaving the birds, Ethan didn't respond. The man glanced at him. "Rock bottom?" Ethan nodded slowly. Lower. The man reached into his coat and pulled out a small black notebook. He handed it to Ethan. Write. Ethan took it, confused. Write what? Everything. Who you were, who you are, who you can still become. Ethan held the notebook tightly. Blank, unwritten, pure. The old man stood. Don't waste your breath waiting for someone to fix you. No one's coming. Save yourself. He walked away. Ethan sat alone, the rain still falling, the notebook in his lap. That night, he returned home soaked, trembling. He changed clothes, lit the one candle left in his drawer, and opened to the first page. He wrote, January 4th, 2025. I used to have purpose. People used to say my name with respect. I was someone. Now I'm just tired. But something about today, about that man, cracked something open. Maybe this page is the only space left that still listens to me. So I'll write. Even if it hurts, especially if it hurts. He closed the notebook. The next morning, he made his bed. He hadn't done that in weeks. He cleaned the sink, shaved his face, walked 2 miles outside. No reason, just motion. He applied to 5 jobs. No one replied. He repeated the same the next day and the next. Still nothing. But he kept going because silence was no longer enough. One evening, while walking past a small alley bookstore he'd never noticed before, a sign in the window caught his eye. Part-time help wanted. He walked in. The shop smelled like pages and peppermint. The owner, a short, sharp-eyed woman in her 60s named Clara, glanced up from behind the counter. Experience? She asked. No, Ethan said, but I work hard and I listen well. She paused, studied him, then said, come tomorrow, 9 a.m., don't be late. He wasn't. He shelved books, swept floors, cleaned glass. He wasn't ashamed. It was honest work, quiet, simple, and for the first time in months, he slept peacefully. At night, he continued writing. January 11th, 2025. I am not where I was, but I am not where I used to be either. The world still feels heavy, but at least now I'm strong enough to carry some of it. And so began Ethan's quiet return to himself. Not dramatic, not loud, just one page, one day, one breath at a time. The bookstore was colder than he expected. The heater barely worked, and Clara Chum, the sharp silver-haired owner, didn't believe in wasting electricity. She believed in routine, discipline, and honesty. The shop smelled of old paper and black coffee, and Ethan found himself slowly becoming part of its stillness. It wasn't success, but it was motion. And motion was something. He arrived every morning 5 minutes early, dusted shelves, organized paperbacks by theme, memorized where things belonged. Clara rarely said much beyond basic instructions, but once she watched him clean the same corner 3 times and said, people who move with that kind of care are usually healing from something. He looked at her, unsure if it was a compliment or an observation, maybe both. One afternoon, a man walked in, mid-30s, dressed sharply in a tailored suit and leather gloves. His presence shifted the stillness. He carried a list of books and moved with purpose. Ethan noticed the titles: leadership, branding, emotional intelligence. You building a library? Ethan asked lightly, ringing up the first few, something like that. The man replied, I'm the founder of a creative media firm, new hires. I want them reading the right stuff. Ethan glanced at the list again. You've picked good ones. The man raised an eyebrow. You've read them? Ethan nodded. Used to build campaigns, before things changed. What kind of campaigns? Product launches, brand identity, consumer engagement. I used to lead a team of 20. The man studied him, not in judgment, in curiosity. What changed? Ethan shrugged. Life, a wrong email, some silence, a long fall. For a moment, the man said nothing. Then he smiled slightly and handed him a card. Noah Benton, CEO, 11 North Media. Email me your story sometime. I read every one. He left with his books. Ethan stood holding the card like it was fire. That night, he didn't sleep. He paced, rewrote drafts, deleted everything, started again. Finally, at 3:08 a.m., he sent the email. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. He wrote about the mistake. The job loss, the depression, the park, the notebook, Clara, the bookstore. He didn't ask for a job. He just wanted someone to know he still existed. He didn't expect a reply, but one came the next day. Let's meet. Coffee Thursday, 10 a.m. my office. He didn't own a suit anymore, so he wore the cleanest button-down shirt he had and borrowed a blazer from a neighbor who barely knew his name. The office was glass, chrome and light. It buzzed with quiet urgency. Ethan sat in the lobby, palms sweaty, until Noah stepped out and greeted him with a warm, firm handshake. "You look like someone who doesn't want to be invisible anymore," Noah said. "I'm tired of fading," Ethan replied. They talked for an hour. Noah didn't ask for rehearsed answers. He asked real questions. What drives you? What broke you? What kept you from giving up? Ethan told the truth. Every broken piece, every false hope, every small step since the notebook. Noah leaned back. "I don't hire resumes, I hire hunger. Come work part-time, junior assistant, shadow the team, learn, add value, get paid enough to breathe. We'll see what happens next." Ethan shook his hand and whispered, "Thank you." Noah grinned. "Don't thank me. Prove me right." Ethan started Monday. It wasn't glamorous. He wasn't in charge, but he was there, back in a building with meetings and energy and emails, back among people with goals. His first week, he barely spoke. He listened, took notes, cleaned whiteboards after meetings, sorted digital folders, offered coffee. But one evening, as the team prepared for a pitch, a junior strategist named Lily fumbled with her notes. "I'm not ready," she whispered. "I always mess these things up." Ethan leaned over. Breathe. You know your stuff. Speak like you're teaching, not performing." She looked at him, uncertain. "Why would you help me?" "Because I know what it feels like when no one does." She smiled softly. The next day, she nailed her presentation. She left a sticky note on his desk. "Thank you for seeing me." Ethan folded it and placed it inside his notebook. Outside of work, he continued writing, continued walking, continued waking up early. One morning, Clara looked at him as he cleaned a shelf. "You've changed. There's color in your face again." "I have somewhere to go now," Ethan replied. "That changes everything." He handed in his resignation that evening. Clara didn't blink, just nodded. "You weren't meant to stay, but I'm glad you passed through." She gave him one last paycheck in an envelope with a folded paper tucked inside. It was a quote, handwritten. "When you have nothing left, build with your breath, brick by brick." Ethan added it to the notebook. He still wasn't earning much, but he was earning himself back. Noah began trusting him with more, reviewing proposals, editing pitches, sitting in on client calls. Once, he asked Ethan to draft the first line of a new campaign. Ethan stared at the screen for an hour, then wrote, "The world isn't waiting for perfect, it's waiting for honest." The team approved it without changes. That night, Ethan took a walk through the same park where it all began. The bench was empty. The old man was nowhere. He sat there anyway. He opened the notebook and wrote, "February 9th, 2025. I still feel fear, I still hear doubt, but now there's a second voice, quieter but steadier. It says, 'You are not done yet.'" The next morning, he arrived at work early. As the office stirred to life, Noah walked in and tossed a set of files on Ethan's desk. "You want to lead a mini project?" he asked casually. Ethan blinked. "Me? You've been building trust," Noah said. "Now build something real." The campaign was small, a social initiative for a mental wellness app, but it mattered. Ethan led brainstorms, guided interns, listened to feedback, fought through anxiety, delivered it on time. T received more engagement than any previous campaign in the series. Noah didn't say much. He just nodded once and said, "Well done." Later that week, Ethan sat with Marcus, a mentor he'd met through a local networking event, a man who believed in pushing people to remember their worth. "You're moving now," Marcus said. "But are you giving back?" "I want to," Ethan replied. "I just don't know how." Marcus looked at him. "Start by telling the story, not to be heard, but so others feel seen." That night, Ethan recorded a short video. Just him, a lamp, a wall behind him. "Hi, my name's Ethan. I used to be invisible, not because people stopped seeing me, but because I stopped seeing myself. Then a stranger handed me a notebook and told me to write who I still could be. I'm not done rebuilding, but I'm awake now, and if you're out there feeling forgotten, I see you." He posted it with hesitation. The next morning, it had 87 views, then 120, then 350. Comments trickled in. "I thought I was alone. This felt like someone knocked on the door of my darkness. Thank you. You made me cry in a good way." Ethan sat in silence. For the first time, his pain had helped someone else. He named the series Wake Up and Rebuild. Every Sunday he posted, not for followers, for the version of him who once sat on the bench with nothing. One comment stuck with him. "You reminded me to try again. I applied for a job today." Ethan cried reading it, not because he was sad, but because his life, broken, messy, uncertain, had finally become useful. He closed the notebook that night, kissed its cover softly and whispered, "I'm not who I was, but maybe I'm exactly who I needed to become." Ethan's video series Wake Up and Rebuild was quietly growing. Not viral, but meaningful. Comments poured in from strangers who saw themselves in his brokenness. His words weren't polished, but they were real. At 11 North Media, Noah noticed. He invited Ethan to help lead a small internal program for employee resilience, group sessions, mentorship chats, and weekly story circles. Ethan spoke once, reluctantly, and the room fell silent. His story wasn't about success, it was about surviving. Lily, the strategist Ethan had helped, now worked closely with him. One day she faced a crisis. A client accused her of copying campaign lines. Ethan knew it wasn't true. He'd seen her draft it from scratch. In a meeting with upper management, as fingers pointed, Ethan stood up. "If blame must fall somewhere, let it fall on me, because we work together. We rise and fall as a team." That moment changed everything. The case was dropped. The client was satisfied with the revision. But more than that, Ethan's quiet leadership began to shine. Noah called him into his office. "You remind people they're human," he said. "That's rare in this industry." Ethan smiled. "I was broken. Now I help others hold their cracks together." That evening, Ethan sat by the same park bench. The old man wasn't there, but in his place, a teenager sat, hoodie up, eyes heavy. Without a word, Ethan sat beside him, then pulled out a fresh notebook from his bag and left it on the bench as he walked away. By mid-2025, Ethan had become more than just a man rebuilding his life. He had become a voice. His series Wake Up and Rebuild gained thousands of followers. He was invited to speak at community events. Podcasts asked him for interviews. But fame wasn't the goal. He still showed up to work on time, still stayed late to help interns, still walked through quiet streets when the world felt too loud. Noah offered him a permanent position, leading a new department focused on purpose-driven storytelling. Ethan accepted. One day, as he organized files in his drawer, he found the original black notebook. Its pages were full, raw pain, recovery, tiny victories. On the final page, he wrote, "I woke up. I rebuilt, and now I help others do the same." Later that week, he returned to the park again, and finally the old man was there. "You kept writing," the man said with a smile. "And I kept breathing," Ethan replied. He handed the man a new notebook, this one thicker with gold edges. "For the next person," Ethan said. The man chuckled. "The rebuild never ends, does it?" Ethan stood, nodded gently, and walked away. not as someone who had made it to the top, but as someone who had learned how to stand and stay standing, even when the world tries to pull you down.